episode of.
All right, now we're live.
So, welcome everybody to another episode of History's Benchwarmers. You are hosted again by me, Adam,
Me, Rich.
and we're trying something new today. Last time, as you saw, we had a live stream. Last time we were hanging out, we decided to have a podcast, but this time we were able to do something with Skype. I'm pretty happy that we're being able to do this. So, yeah, got an
All right.
interesting topic for you today.
So on the news today, Adam and I were on the phone earlier talking just possible Skype ideas. Obviously, if you've listened to our past podcasts, you know that we're both teachers. Discussing like things in social politics, and Chicago Teachers Union is going to be going on strike possibly. Bernie Sanders is here in Chicago at the moment supporting the teachers union. So
Really?
yeah, it's pretty cool. So you got a lot
Wow.
of different like teachers going out there to feel the burn. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Um, so yeah, one of the craziest things that I saw today though was the movement to impeach Trump. What's that about? Have you seen anything?
Yeah, so right now Nancy Pelosi just announced that that the House of Representatives is moving forward with the process of impeachment. Now, when people hear that, there's a little bit of difference in it. It's just the start of the process. It doesn't mean that it's gonna happen, because the three times that it's happened, only one president has actually been impeached. Clinton. Um, um, did Clinton? I don't think Clinton got him. No, Clinton didn't get him.
So Clinton was the impeachment process was there. Essentially, what it was, he wasn't allowed to run for presidency. Like he finished out his term, but he wasn't able to go get reelected. And like, I don't know how that worked out. Obviously, all the under the table things that happened. And wow. All right. Hey,
Whatever the hell's going on up there. But we also know about
get
Nixon
a
too.
broomstick and
I
hey,
know, right?
shut up.
I. uh, but we know about Nixon, and Nixon almost got impeached, and he was so sure of the fact that he was going to be impeached that he actually resigned being president, the first ever president to do that, to leave office. I think with like a year or two left in his term, which that's just if that doesn't say that
I
you
am
are
fuck.
if that isn't an admission of guilt, then I really don't know what is. And then
Well,
there was a
we'll
go
talk
ahead.
about that. That's the Watergate scandal.
Yeah.
Like essentially, he was being impeached because the world found out that they were tapping phone lines, right?
Mhm.
So for the U.S. government to be tapping phone lines and to be listening to conversation, like that's a serious thing. And now we have the Homeland Security administration who's listening to probably everything that we're saying. And just because I said Homeland Security, they're probably already listening to what we're saying and watching us because obviously they have the technology to do that. So now we're on their watch list. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You are on America's. Oh crap! What was it? Crap, I was gonna
America's
say
Most Wanted.
America's Most Wanted. All of you viewers. Yep. Just because you
What's
listen to us.
Well, that's something crazy too, because I mean, look at all the stuff that's happened in just the past 5 years alone. I mean, we've had a lot of school shootings, we've had a lot of mass shootings. I mean, even with the controversy with the Mueller report, you're going to tell me that we have so much security and so much video and audio of everything that's going on in the world, and you're going to tell me that we don't know for sure facts about a lot of things. Me as a citizen, I want to, like, if I hear about a mass shooting, I'm sorry, I want to hear, like, I want to see it. Like, I want to know that it happened. I don't want to see a little picture of it. I want to see it because I want to know that it's true, and I want to know that it's happening, right? They have a full video of Columbine from the cameras that were in the school. So you were able to see everything. There were people Snapchatting that
Well, why do
driver
you?
who went through Woodfield Mall the other day, and
Yeah.
we were able to
By the
see
way,
that.
by the way, for the viewers who are not in Chicago, that was not in Chicago. That did not. That driving, like this dude driving through the mall, did not take place in Chicago. Chicago's a crazy city, but it took place in a suburb outside of Chicago. And all the time, news outlets always say In Chicago news, like, and it's like Naperville. That's not Chicago. It's a whole different city. That's like calling Boulder Denver. You know what I mean? Two different cities, two different places, like different lifestyles.
Yeah.
So before we get too off track, I like this idea where you're going with the mass shootings. Granted, I don't know if I want to watch a video of like a dude going through a school and shooting up a school. Like that's not what I want to watch.
No, of course, no one ever wants to watch that. But if you're going to show pictures and little snippets on the news, you might as well just show the entire thing. I mean, in my opinion, I know it's pretty.
But why? So I agree with you. But why? Why should they do that? Our news is already, violent and bloody without having to see the gore. Like, if you've seen like Mexican news or Hispanic news or news in other countries, like I know some of the Mexican news outlets literally have videos of people hanging from freeways. It gets wild, and that censorship there is probably to protect American viewers, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
I mean, we've seen some pretty messed up movies, The Purge, um, Saw. Like those movies are gory, they're bloody, they're gross. Americans like that. People like that. But why do we want to see it for real?
I think I think why we should show it for real is to show people the seriousness of it. Like when I got the text message on my phone that there was an active shooter in Schaumburg when the driver went through Woodfield Mall. Now, of course, we found out that he was an active shooter. He just went through the mall with his car. It's
Can you
still
imagine this
scared.
dude's all heated because he saw his girlfriend with another dude?
It's just straight through
He's like,
Sears.
no, no, no.
But in
Oh,
all honesty, it's like I would never have thought when I had seen it that you hear about it happening in Texas, and for the people living in Texas, of course, it's horrifying. And when they happen in Ohio and Dayton, I have family that lives in Fremont, and Dayton, Ohio is a good hour away, hour and a half away from where they live. That's still kind of horrifying to me. We hear about all these, like for an example, the hurricanes that happen in Florida. I have family that lives over in St. Augustine, and to hear all of this stuff that's actually happening in places where I know people, it's crazy. But then also to live it is another. So to hear about experiences is one thing, but to live through an experience and to know that it's happening closer to you than you expected is horrifying. And the
absolutely.
reason why we need to take it so seriously and why I believe that we should show it is because we need to we need to have people take a serious stand on this stuff. Like it's not a joke anymore. Like it's not just, kids can't make jokes anymore that it's like, oh, you know, that I'm upset and I'm gonna, shoot up the whole school. Like that's not a joke. The school that I'm student teaching at, we are having an active shooter drill on Thursday. And that is something as an educator that I never would have thought had to be practiced in a procedure. A lot of kids thought it was a joke when I told them the procedure we had to do. And I made sure everybody in the class knew exactly. I made every other kid repeat and then repeat it back to me and repeat it to the class what we were doing because I had them to make sure. Because they hear about it. Last year alone, every other week I felt like there was a school shooting. That's horrifying as an educator and parents too, to know that your kids aren't safe in that building anymore. We used to have to do tornado drills. We used to have to do fire drills. That's
Those tornado drills were absolutely the worst things.
They were like, when's a
Dude,
tornado ever?
I remember going into the hallway and doing this.
Yeah.
And I remember asking my principal, she's walking down the hall, making sure everybody's got their hands over their head and they're crouched. And I asked her, I said, this is all glass and brick right here. Like, I'm gonna die. Like, what happens if a tornado actually comes? She's like, you'll be safe because you're covering your head. I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. And I was in like third grade asking this question. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. She's like, just do it. And I'm like, okay, cool. But like, those tornado drills were all awful. Like the duck and cover concept.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
hiding under a desk is really gonna save your life from a nuke.
but that's something that they had to live with. Our parents had to live with that fact that
Well,
nuclear war was
grandparents.
grandparent. Well, yeah, grandparents.
Well,
But
maybe I suppose. Let me ask my dad. I mean,
I asked my mom. My mom did duck and cover because my mom was in school in the 70s and in the late 70s, early 80s. So
I'll text
I
my
mean,
dad.
it was still around. But that's still something people had to live through. Could you imagine that? Like you have all the crazy things of becoming an adult and all the emotions you have to go through. And now you also have to worry that your government, who you have no say in, is gonna drop nukes on each other. That's crazy. Like
I'm gonna text my dad and ask him if he ever did duck and cover.
it's a crazy concept. And now we've gone from ducking and cover from a nuclear bomb between two different governments who are still on the news 40 years later and still struggling with the same things, but
Yeah.
now we also have to worry about school shooters. Like
So
that's
along that line, the mass shootings, that's a fucked up thing. It's scary. It's a scary thing. But did you notice on the news when Epstein, like the billionaire, like the Epstein cult, rape cult, going to different islands and stuff, got exposed?
mhm.
A day after that, there was like three mass shootings, which then took over media coverage and basically put this Epstein cult under the blanket.
Mhm.
And people are so ignorant, and ignorant meaning they're uneducated and they're blind and they're not actually focusing and realizing on what's happening. They forgot about it.
Mhm.
I didn't forget about it. And guess what? Good old buddy Bill Clinton was there. He was at that freaking island. All these people who glorify the Clintons, thinking that they're America's heroes, dude, they are probably America's most corrupt family in history.
Kennedy's too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. These people are awful, yet they're in power.
Yeah.
Yet Hillary was this close to winning. This close to winning. Are you kidding me? No. No. How many people have been killed because of Hillary? How many people have been killed because of Clinton? How many people have committed suicide in their administration or around them that has known them or have known them because they're dead now? They are
Because
bad people. They are bad people, and we have them in power just because they can talk. Because they
yeah.
have the ability to sway the masses with the way they speak. And the masses in the United States are so uneducated. They're so stupid. They're so distracted. And it's just like nothing else but money, but video games, cell phones, social media, and what the fuck is hot on TV. Excuse my language. Is what is important to the American viewer. Yet people like you and I are out here discussing big things. Epstein's cult, to me, that's not done. This dude Epstein is dead, apparently. I don't believe that he's dead. I believe that he paid somebody to a lookalike like him, put that person in jail, and got out. And if he is actually dead, who do you think killed him? Clinton probably killed him. Because he's like,
Oh
whoa,
yeah.
whoa, whoa, my name's out there? No way. No way.
But then it's not. But then you have
And
to
now
go
it's
into the
all,
idea.
but it's all brushed under the rug because of mass shootings.
Yeah.
And
It.
now,
It.
and now let's segue that into this Trump, possible impeachment policy.
What
Why,
happened the day
why
they had the
now?
court?
Why now is Trump, is this movement finally being pushed?
Right. And
When
let me
Trump has
tell
been
you.
in power for almost 4 years, 3 years, right? Ouch.
Right. 3 years
Trump's been
as
in
of
power for a
November.
few years, and he has said some pretty raunchy things.
Yeah.
He, as a president, he has done some good things for the country,
Mhm.
and to deny those good things would be completely false. Then that would be a biased opinion.
Mhm.
Trump has done good things. He's pushing for America first. Going to like China and Russia and going to North Korea and meeting with other countries to try to get our money back to us.
Mhm.
And that's good. He's trying to bring businesses back. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I get that. I
But
get that.
then.
But then you have all the crazy things that he has said. Why now, near the end of his administration, are they pushing for this impeachment process? I personally think it's because Trump probably put somebody out there on blast who is in the House of Rep or who's in the Senate, and Nancy Pelosi is like, yo, we need to get this dude out of here before the American people find out what he said, and then we're all screwed. Because all these people who are up there in Capitol Hill, dude, they're fucking this country more than any of us know. They are destroying our country. And yet, what are we doing about it? Oh, Trump's bad. Oh, mass shootings are bad. Oh, Epstein cult, bad. But they're not putting fire under that. But what they're doing is they're dividing the country. And I'm saying they as in media.
Of course.
Mainstream media. Trump got that right when he was going into power. The mainstream media and fake news is a real thing. Mm-hmm. It's a real thing that we as American people need to be educated on and realize, hey, don't trust everything that you see out there. It's going to end up hurting you more than helping you. Mm-hmm. You've got the American people who are divided, man. CNN, NBC, Fox News, these mainstream corporations are dividing the country so damn much. We're on the brink of civil war, man.
I absolutely agree with that, because we have now such polarized sides of the left and the right, and it's not just now. It's always been there, but now
you've always had the far left and far right, but they were outliers. It wasn't the norm.
Here's the biggest thing. Over the summer tried to do a lot of research on revolutions, because it something sparked the historian in me to figure out why these revolutions went the way that they did and how certain people got into power. Like Napoleon, for an example, with the French Revolution. There was the idea of people trying to talk it out, having a constitutional monarchy, right? Having, more control into the elites, more control to the people than to the elites, right? And then they kind of let the king be king with the constitutional right to him, and he didn't like that. He let society progress, and then he didn't like it to a certain point and started to degress society. And what happens when society progresses and it takes a step back, people get angry because you've given them so much and then you take it away from them. That the only answer, because you saw what the moderates could do, right? So the moderates in the French Revolution say, we finally did it. And the king's like, I'm going to take it back because I can. And next thing you know, the radicals on the left were just like, you know what? We saw what would happen. They take a step back, they take a step forward, and then take a step back. Now we want blood. Now we're going to act how we want to act, because we tried your way and it didn't work. And now we're going to try our way. And that's how it's going to work. Same thing in the Russian Revolution. That's why there were two. The first one was the abdication of the Tsar. And then the second one, he died. And in the first one, they had a council. They had a Duma. That Duma was able to kind of put more power into the Soviets, right? The Soviets were just the workers, because 90% of Russia were workers and former serfs, right? And they didn't have a lot. And there was royalty and the Romanovs. But they knew that they had to do something, and they tried the moderate way, and it didn't work because nothing got done. In a whole year of sitting and talking with the government, nothing happened until a man named Vladimir Lenin came along with a very nice way of speaking to the public and a great way of swaying people to think one way or another. And he called for blood. And that's why anytime you say socialism and communism in this country, people get terrified, because they've seen what happens there. People starve, people die, they ask for blood.
We already went into a whole podcast on socialism and communism, the difference. So, granted, it's not a full audio. I mean, it's just an audio video.
Right.
It's not just me and you speaking face to face, or, we just started doing that. But for the viewers out there, go back and listen to that. It's super educational, super informative, and it will help you tremendously.
Yes.
It'll help get rid of that fear that you have of socialism, communism. Because they're words, but our government has put so much fear behind those things.
And it's just and that's the thing too. We don't, like you said, we don't have an educated populace. No. And what happens is we have a populace that's just more sheep. The idea behind this democracy, and if you look at it as in a political terms, it's something that yes, it's the power to the people, but it's not to everybody. There's, I believe it's Plato. I might be wrong, but I know it's one of the ancient philosophers. Plato said, "I hate democracy." He says democracy is the worst, and the only reason why he says that is because imagine if you were on a boat heading into a storm, right? Would you, knowing the skills that you have of controlling a boat, would you take the reins? Or a man who's been studying the sea, been on the sea for 25 years of his life, right? Who would you trust in going with the boat through the storm? You would trust in
I mean,
so this is
so
what I
you're
get. So
saying,
this is what I get from it.
hold on. Let me try to understand what you just said. So essentially, you're saying if there's a big storm coming, and I know how to maneuver a boat, and I know
If
everything
you
about,
knowing no if you know the knowledge that you have right now of rowing of controlling a boat, or a man who spent his entire life on the seas for 25 years.
oh yeah, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. You're
Right.
referring to me as in myself. Okay, yeah,
Right.
yeah, I absolutely get what you're saying, and yeah, of course, I would go for the person who knows what he's doing.
Right.
So then, with that being said, using that same analogy, should we keep our politicians in for life because they've been doing it forever and they studied this and they've been doing it for 20 years?
No. We need to educate people. We need to have them know because I as an educator try to teach students about civics and there's two things. One, they don't care, and two, they don't know. This is something that needs to be embedded. Yes, simple math and science, yeah. But we need to understand how a government works. The social studies needs to be at the forefront of our society. Now, of course, me being a social studies teacher, I'm going to be a little
Oof.
biased on that. But if we want to understand, because I'm sick and tired of people saying that they hate how the government works, but they have no idea how to change it. They don't know what to do with it. And it's like because you weren't educated enough. And it's not you and you can't blame yourself anymore. You have to blame the system. Do you know how much of our tax dollars actually goes to education?
How
A
much?
poll says 3 to 4% of our tax dollars, the trillions of dollars that we have in taxes, 3% of it goes to education. And that's not just in one state, that's for all 50 states. In all 50 states, only 3% of our income tax, the money that the government takes for us to promote the general welfare and to provide for the common defense and for domestic tranquility, only 3% goes to educating the people in understanding how government works and how to live life properly. 3% of it, while at least a little more than 50% goes to our military. And
Shouldn't it be that way though? Don't we need to have a military to protect and preserve our freedom?
we have the number one, what do they call it? We have the number one deterrent. And every country in the world almost has the number one deterrent since World War II. We have the hydrogen bomb, which if we have a couple of them go off around the world, we're done. Everybody. It can wipe the existence of us forever. That's why nobody really wants to go to war. Why do you think we go to war with countries that are less developed? You know, all the conflicts we have, we don't go at a full scale war with Russia or with Poland or with the UK or with France because these are countries that have nuclear weapons.
Well, apparently we are at war with them. We're in trade wars, we're in cyber wars, but we're not on boots in the ground type of traditional warfare.
Because we have that number one deterrent. Because we know that that's kind of the end all be all. You know, if one country's losing, they're heading towards our capital. You know, we can't just hunker down in our castles and just wait. You know, have a bloody siege. No, if we're losing, we launch it. That's it. And I feel like with the way things are going, that might be the only choice that people have if we decide to go to open war. And yes, I do agree with you that we are in trade wars and that we are in cyber wars. But because we can't go to war with each other with boots on the ground.
Well, do you think that a cyber war is more effective than a traditional war?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because it's what people see. I mean, look, you're on TV all the time. You're on social media all the time. How many times do you check? iPhone has now come up with, if you see it on Sundays, it always comes up with how much of a percentage that you've actually been using your phone. For how many hours, how many minutes of screen time have you actually had, right? And it's astonishing how many hours. I think once I tracked in like a whole day in a week, just one full day, 24, I think it was like 20 hours or something like that. I've looked just active time on my phone. 20 hours in a week.
No
So
wonder you
that's
don't get
almost,
anything done.
huh?
No wonder you don't get anything done. But that's not just you.
No, and there's
I'm the same
probably
way.
people.
Everybody else out there is the same way unless they do not have social media, unless they
Right.
do not have a smartphone.
But then if you're not there, then they have this idea that you're not going to be connected with the rest of the world, which is also horrifying because we now have this globalization that it's not just Europe and Africa and Asia and us and Latin America. It's now
We're
everybody's.
living in the new Silk Road.
Yes.
The Silk Road that connected everybody in the past. 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, when everybody was just like, hey, I'm going to take my stuff in Egypt and take it to China. China's going to take their stuff and take it to Rome. Rome's going to take their stuff and take it to India. Like, mind blowing. Now we're more connected than ever. And now, if I wanted to, with a click of a button, I can go on any website and go buy like a billion different things from China. And they'll get here in a couple days, maybe a week or two, but it'll get here quicker than anything ever got anywhere.
Hmm.
So yeah, a trade war is awful. Trade war will destroy country, but at the same time, oh my gosh, cyber warfare also would too.
Hmm.
Imagine if a country says, you know what? If Russia's like, you know what? Let's cut all power supply to U.S. Click of a button, their hackers go, boom, all of us lose power. That means our phones, our cars, because our cars run off of computer chips. So imagine if they send one of those EMP bombs. Boom. Anything with a computer chip, fried. Then what? Our society is going to go into chaos.
Hmm.
People are not going to know what to do. People are going to lose millions of dollars because they're not going to have access to touching that money. People are going to lose everything. People are going to go rob stores. People are going to kill each other. It's going to be like the Purge, man. And I'm sure that this stuff is happening.
Hmm.
I'm sure that countries are like, hey, let's do it. I'm sure the United States is like, hey, let's do it. Because why kill Americans or why kill any civilian when you can just have them kill each other?
Yep.
And that's the evil brilliancy of world leaders today.
Is it though? Is it evil, or is it just? Is it
At the
more
end of the day, why don't we send Trump to go fight Putin?
like a
Why
fist
don't we
fight?
send like a fist fight, a sword fight, something, man? Just a one-on-one battle. If you if you don't like a country, fucking kill each other for it. Why do us, the civilians, the normal people, why do we have to go and fight for you?
Right. That's
Why
why
do
that
why
that's
do we have to go and go kill ourselves? I'm
that's
not gonna go do that. Why would
that's
I have to?
I agree, and that's why we have problems now in the United States. No one's pointing fingers at the government. People are pointing fingers at each other. Oh, you're left, you're right. That's who's the problem. It's not the government. It's not the people in charge. No, no, God forbid. It's not the people with all the money in the country. They're not the problem. The people who are the problem is the guy across from you who just has a little bit of a political difference than you.
You remember have
He's your enemy.
you ever watched the movie V for Vendetta?
No.
Watch
Is
it.
it good?
Oh man. It shows you the power of what happens when every single country is up in arms against its government.
Oof,
Remember the 5th of November.
the fifth of
Watch the movie. For all of you viewers who have not watched it, watch the movie. It is scary as a government to watch. Why do we want all of our American people to be divided? It's easier to control divided people.
Divide and conquer.
Every single person in this country said, you know what? We want Trump out. Everybody. Trump's gone. If every single person in the country said, we want a brand new government, we want everybody out of there, guess what's going to happen? Everybody's going to be gone. Because at the end of the day, is the government really going to pull the trigger on mass protesters if everybody's protesting? It don't matter how many people you kill. It don't matter how many bombs you drop. Those people you kill will then become martyrs.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else is going to go crazy. And even the soldiers who are fighting are going to be like, why am I going to go shoot my mom and dad when they're out here trying to fight for better rights? Why am I, the soldier who's getting paid $19,000 a year, even though I'm 25, been in the military for a few years, I'm getting paid $19,000 a year, less than minimum wage, and you expect me to go shoot people for you? What? Just because I was trained to do this? Nah, don't get it twisted. At least the sensible-minded soldiers, Marines, militaries, personnel.
Navy, Air Force.
Military personnel. So, like, I don't know, man. So going back to the Trump administration, because we veered off a little bit. A good,
Very
like,
much
30 minutes of veering. But regardless, man, what if Trump said, like, is going to oust somebody or ousted somebody, but our mainstream media doesn't talk about it?
The Mueller report came out again about a month and a half ago.
And it came out that he lied
And you know what happened
on live
the next
TV.
day?
And you know what happened?
2 mass shootings. One in Texas and one in Ohio.
Yes.
And then everybody talked about the Second Amendment. Nobody wanted to talk about the Mueller report. No one wanted to talk about our president who lied, just like Clinton did when he lied to the United States saying he didn't have sexual relations with that woman. He lied just the same. But instead, I believe personally, because nobody would believe, this is a crazy concept. What if Trump always preaches about fake news, right? He always says fake news, fake news, fake news. But he's an advocate for promoting against fake news, but uses fake news so that he can get away with it. Crazy concept, I know. But hear me out. Saying to the masses of people that you are against something and then using it without them knowing is so secretive, and the morality behind it is so crazy, but it's a Machiavellian kind of way of doing things. And in all honesty, if you are a power hungry person, Machiavelli is a person that you should really listen to. And it's just a way to run things. Machiavelli, if you guys didn't know, he wrote The Prince. And The Prince was basically a book talking about how in that time there was a lot of Christian morals and Christian values that people always had to do the right thing. But sometimes the right thing isn't going to get things done. And sometimes you have to bend the rules a little bit to get your way. Now, if you're going for money and power, of course, where does morality stick into there? Because your one goal is money and power. It's not to be a good person. It's not to be a bad person. It's to have and be at the top. Have everything and be at the top. And for people who know that, who can really look at themselves and say, morality means little to me, but power and being on top means everything, then they can shed that light away. You know, religion and society always pushes for morality. It always pushes for the good and what's right against what's wrong. But sometimes, and I've always tried to tell this to people, that morality is subjective. It's not something that's set in stone, but it's something that you put as a person, what is right and what is wrong, on your beliefs based on how you live and in your society.
And that's how governments control us, because
Yes.
they tell us what morality should be. That's
Yes.
why religions control people, because they tell us what morality should be. Instead of human beings saying, you know what, I'm not going to kill somebody. It's against my beliefs. People are out there doing it, regardless. And you know how people are. You tell somebody no, they want to do it even more. So, I don't know. So, like, I guess my perspective on that morality thing, what if we all lived in, like, a Viking-style society? Would that be a less violent society or more?
I think less.
I think so, too.
Because I've thought about this a lot. Because we live in a society, we look at, for an example, the Christian society and what we would call pagan Viking society back then, right? Vikings had a moral code. I'm listening to a podcast right now on Vikings. And it's going through. I mean, we haven't really gotten to the English yet, and where they were really recorded, but kind of like pre-history kind of Vikings, which is nuts to hear about other people besides Mesopotamians in the prehistorical world.
So not medieval age Vikings, but
Not, it's leading
like
up to that. But that sense of how their religion coincided with their society, that they can bleed, that they can literally see blood as the life energy of people, but not shun it away, right? Whereas in Christianity, blood is something that's sacred. Well, in Viking pagan religion, blood is also very sacred, but it's not something that should be separated from others. That makes sense. That blood is one in of itself. That's why when people would like when they would sacrifice humans, which is something that they did, they would put their blood on them. You know, they
they
would
would
wipe their
drink their
blood.
blood.
They would drink their blood. You
Yeah, I
know,
don't
they
know.
would.
I don't know how well that would go today.
No, absolutely not, because of how we structure our society
Well, not
around
just
the
that,
morality of.
not just that, all the diseases that are out there.
Oh
Can you
yeah.
imagine HIV being a thing during the Viking
Oh
times?
God.
They would have eliminated themselves before Christians came and took them over.
Oh man. That's terrible. But we have those diseases now, and a lot of people base that off of we have all these diseases because our morality has been so bad. You know, do you know how many people have been called the scourge of God? Do you know how many times when like example when the Vikings came over, the English thought that they were being punished by God because of their sinful nature, and he brought the Vikings to put down his wrath. People thought that about Attila the Hun. People thought that about Genghis Khan. People thought that about the Muslims when they started their expansion. There's been so many examples of just people using any disaster, disease, enemy, you name it, to just be the wrath of God instead of saying this is something that just happens and people have to understand that. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are saying these are the times worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. I think that's just a saying that people say. That you
Yep.
say that it's just as bad, but I can point you to the fact that where we all thought we were gonna die, where you had to hide under a desk for the fear that a nuclear bomb was gonna hit you. Like
So
we.
did have you seen? I saw a post on Facebook. Sorry to cut you off, but I
Oh, go
saw a
ahead.
post on Facebook, Instagram, one of the two, on one of those meme history pages, and instead of me trying to argue to somebody that the 20th century was the most peaceful yet violent time in all of our history, and then that person's the chick asking you to buy her a drink. It's just like, but
Yeah,
yeah, you saw that.
I
I
know
saw.
what you're talking about.
So like, essentially, the 21st century is probably one of the most peaceful times that humans have ever lived
Mhm.
because we have those big ass deterrents.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's like
bad.
I'm not gonna go at you with steel and iron. No, I'm just gonna drop a bomb on you. So don't fuck with me.
Yeah, that's
So
why I told you, man. That
and look, we can go. I mean, granted, it's probably not the safest for people of my skin complexion to go to like the Middle East right now, but we can go anywhere in the world that we want, and generally be safe. Not in fear of holy crap, if I go there, the people there are gonna massacre me. No, you can go anywhere and just be like, "Who? I'm gonna travel," and that's generally okay.
and that's something too, man. Like you hear about. I mean, a lot of people say that Christianity has been probably the most persecuted religion um, in history, which I will agree. A lot of followers of Christianity have died probably by the hundreds of thousands. Absolutely. But a lot of people have died for their faiths. Now, I'm not saying that those people who died for Christianity don't matter, especially in the 21st century, which apparently still happens nowadays. I mean, of course,
Oh yeah.
when
Well, I
ISIS
mean,
was going around, they
look
were
at
killing not
Africa,
just Christians, they were
but
killing
not
Muslims and Jews
absolute.
too.
But I
And
mean,
in Africa,
look at Africa right now.
South
Like,
Sudan,
how
Sudan.
many Christians are being killed? Is it talked about? Nah. Are any of the issues going on in Africa being talked about? Nah. Why? Because Africa is not wanted anymore.
No,
It
it's
was raped.
not.
It was raped by imperialism,
Yep.
and now it's like, we took all we wanted from you.
Yep.
Fight amongst yourselves. That's why the majority of the genocides have taken place in the 20th century happened in Africa.
Yeah. Because I always used to explain it to people. It's like,
Not
imagine.
okay. I'm gonna take that back because that's not entirely true. Not entirely true, but big amount of like what 3 genocides in the 20th century, and there's like 7 of them. So that's a quarter of it.
And after we've made the United Nations that we bring all of the world together to try to stop all of this, and somehow like a guy comes into the UN. Now, of course, this doesn't happen, but metaphorically, of course, comes into the UN with his arm blown off and blood coming down his face from his family members, and the UN's like, "Wow." So anyway, back to current news, because it's just when the Rwandan genocide happened, they sent UN people, but they had no power. They had no right to shoot any of the people, good, bad, either side of the conflict.
It's like
They were
help
just
me.
there.
Nah.
I said I got a
And then
primary.
when I can't remember the name of the lady, but like the UN leader who was there to help like talk to the people to calm down. Well, she was killed. The UN said, "Peace. We out of here." And
It's for what? If we have a United Nations that has a military that takes part from every country, we put people into that unit, and they do nothing. Their job is just to go there just for moral support,
that's
just to go
world.
there just to flash their badge and flash that we're from the United Nations.
No, dude,
Cool.
it's
Watch me
world
skin this guy
dominance.
alive. Like it's insane.
It's world dominance.
World dominance in what? The UN hasn't done anything in terms of stopping these genocides and stopping these things from
Why would they
happening.
though? Why would they? They don't need to. They don't need to.
They do need to. You want to know why? Because
No, they
there are
need to.
two part. There are
I'm saying
two
they need
areas.
to. I'm saying they need to, as in like a, again going back to the morality behind it, right? They should stop it,
Yes.
but they don't need to.
No.
They're living lavishly. They're well off. Their countries are fine. Our country is fine. Don't matter. It don't
Here's
matter if you're suffering. I'm cool. Until
here's
it happens to them, then they're gonna be like, "Yo, help now."
here's my biggest argument, especially when people want to talk about, for an example, immigration. There's a lot of African immigrants. There's a lot of Moroccans in Europe. Now, I'm not saying Morocco is a bad country or there's stuff going on in there, right? But there's a lot of people in Africa migrating into the Middle East, migrating into Europe, and there's a lot of Latin American countries where their populations are migrating into the United States and other Latin American countries. And I always like to tell people that it's not them we should blame for coming over here, but it's us that we need to take the blame for leaving those countries as bad as we did. Life wouldn't be so bad that these people have to uproot themselves to come to a different country if we didn't leave the countries in such turmoil. South America, just like Africa, just how Africa was raped by Europe, Latin America was raped by the United States. Bad.
Oh yeah,
Dollar diplomacy during
and
the Taft administration was
it's
terrible,
still
and
being
it's still
raped.
going on. And somehow we blame people for illegally coming into this country, even though we refuse to put blame on ourselves. Instead of saying, well, you should go through the process and you should do this. No, what we should do is put money back into those countries that we took it away from. We
Oh yeah,
shouldn't be taking from them and expecting them to be like, okay, well, your people are working for pennies and 12 hours and they can barely afford to, you know,
eat.
survive in the environment. Yeah, and they have to resort into using drugs and to going into the drug business. And then they come here to start a new life. And then they're tracked as people who do drugs and that traffic drugs. No, that was the only job they had to do. In some cases, of course. Other cases are different. But that's just the percentage, like everything is. But what needs to be understood is that it's an us issue. We have caused this problem and we are dealing with the consequences of it. Now, granted, immigration has always been something that's been a hot topic in America ever since the 1890s.
And
Period.
it still continues to be today.
Yes.
Immigration right now is one of the biggest concerns that every American has. Whether you're far left, far right, it don't matter what it is. That's a concern in everybody's mind. Whether we should let everybody in, open the gates, and say, "Come on in. You need help, we got you," or close the gates, build a wall, stop everybody. It's a concern. It's been a concern. Like the hatred of immigrants has always been there, though.
Mhm.
People think that, like, oh well, you know what? It's Trump's fault that we hate immigrants, and it's the Mexicans and Hispanics. It's like, no,
No.
not at all. that anti-Chinese Semitism was there since like what 1800s
Oh,
when the
yeah.
Chinese first came in to this country. Man, they were hated so badly. They were so different. People were like, "I can't accept you. You don't speak my language. You don't look like me. You don't have my religion. You eat funny foods. You dress funny. Nah, get out. Get out. I'm gonna lynch you. I'm gonna kill you."
They made an entire amendment that passed through Congress and the president, specifically saying the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1880, I think it was 86 or 89. But they made an entire law, an act passed by our government that we have elected that said we will no longer have Chinese immigrants coming into this country. You couldn't marry, you couldn't get a job, you couldn't do a lot of the things that other immigrants on the other side of the United States could do.
So other side meaning the
The
west
east
side of
the East
the
Coast.
west coast.
No, I'm saying on the other side. The Irish immigrants after being, you
Oh,
know,
well, let's go into the Irish immigrants. Man, the Irish immigrants were essentially slaves.
yeah.
They were essentially slaves. They were so poorly treated. Like it was the worst. You were Irish? Oh my God, you were a disease. But if you were German Protestant, oh man, come on in, buddy, because you're a Protestant man. You're white. You look like me. You kind of sound similar to me. Come on in. You have the same religion. But if you're a Catholic, oh man, that's like a no go. That was a big no no. Oh yeah, there's a lot of anti. You know, look at the Italians. How bad the Italians were treated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and back in the society back then, when everything was much more extreme than it is now, like today, yeah, you've got that anti-Hispanic sentiment. You've got hatred spewing left and right, but you don't see people actively going out and lynching like they did before. Before, you said the wrong thing to the wrong person, the whole clan was after you,
Mm-hmm.
and they would kill you, and there's nothing anybody could do about it. The government was involved in it.
Yep.
So, like, what did you have? What was your option back in the day? Well, shit, I'm gonna assimilate. I'm gonna forget my Italian roots, my Irish roots, my well, maybe not the Germans, but I'm gonna forget my roots, and I'm gonna become American, whatever that means. I'm gonna become American. You know, and that's why you have people today like, oh well, my grandfather when he came to Italy, he learned English. What's the excuse nowadays? Well, the excuse nowadays is we don't have the violent society like lynching people like we did before.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I'm not saying that like it doesn't happen. It does.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not as common as it was back then.
Right.
And now our education is probably much worse than it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
So why would people want to learn English? If you can come to this country and still thrive without speaking a lick of English, why? Don't matter then.
Mm-hmm. I come from a first generation immigrant family. When my father was my age, 22, he came from Morocco, not speaking a word of English, left his house, decided to come here to work and to have an education to start a new life because he knew that life in Morocco, he wasn't going to amount to anything. Now, granted, there are people who do amount to things in Morocco, but just like all other immigrants from around the world, they saw the United States as opportunity. What he told me the United States was like Miami Vice in the 80s. Fast cars, money, women. Like he just thought that's how all of the United States was. Um, but when I mean, of course, everything wasn't going to be given to you. When he came here, he came for a college education. Then after that, he was working full time as a cab driver. So working full time in school and full time as a cab driver, mind you, with no student loans, all just paying right out of his
Yeah,
pocket,
well,
having to.
college was not as expensive as it is today.
But if you're not a citizen, it's still not cheap, and you're not getting student loans. So you're literally paying everything, and they need it now, not later.
Yeah, but you
Kind of
could still pay it because it was affordable.
right, but having to take
It wasn't $25,000 per quarter or per semester.
no, but it was probably like what a good five
Yeah, but
thousand
$5,000 you can work and pay it.
in the '90s.
If you're a cab driver, yeah.
Servers were getting paid $1 back then.
Yeah,
Servers
but
are
you
getting
still got
paid
tips.
$4 an hour now.
But remember, money was worth more back in the day than it
That's
is
what I'm
now,
saying. So it may be 1,000. It may be only like. We
especially
may
in
say it's only
Chicago.
$5,000. We may say it's only $5,000 now. Shit, I wish my tuition for a whole year was $5,000.
Oh, yeah,
But for him, that could be what, 15?
maybe, maybe.
You know, a hundred
But the,
dollars a
but
night
twenty
to.
but $20 stretched so much further back then than it does now.
Oh yeah,
Back in the '90s, I remember going to the store with my mom, $25, and we'd come home with almost a week's worth of groceries.
yeah. Gas
20
would be what,
It was
quarters?
a buck. No, I remember year 2000. It was like $1.50, and I remember my dad being upset about this. Like $1.50. What the heck is this country going to? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, it's only $1.50, Dad. That's it. Now I'm older and I realize, like, holy crap, $1.50. That'd be great. Take me back.
Please. You remember? You remember when what was the gas went to like $1.90 or something? Out here in the suburbs, it
Oh
did.
man,
Got to like a dollar
dude,
something,
there
like a
was
dollar
outcry.
90.
Everyone was like, the world's ending.
Now we're just at a steady 270, and
70,
it's gonna get.
$3 in some parts of Chicago. Yeah.
Oh, dude,
Do you
that's
remember when gas was about $5?
yes, I do remember
Oh,
that.
that was a
That
few
was
years ago.
scary.
That was rough, dude. California was probably like $8 then.
Fuck.
Oh my god.
No, that's
So
horrible.
going back to like the reasons that, like, I guess culminating this whole concept, because we went here, we went there, we went around, we went back, we went under, we went over, like we talked about everything. But going back to this Trump impeachment thing, it's probably dealing with immigration. It's probably dealing with the mass shootings. It's probably dealing with Trump being Trump, just this abrasive person who is representing our country. He is the highest representative of our country, and he's as abrasive as it comes.
Mhm.
But then we have radicalists like Beto O'Rourke, who's out here like, I'm going to take your gun. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. And don't send people to people's doors to start taking guns, because that's how you start a war. You
Yep.
want a revolution? That's how you start a revolution. You want a civil war? That's how you start a civil war. Beto O'Rourke, I understand that there needs to be gun reform. I understand that getting a gun should not be easy. You should not be able to go to like a gun show and walk out with that's a no thing. I do not agree with that. I think the gun shows are bad things. I think you should go check them out, get the opportunity to use it maybe if there's like a little range or something. Yeah, but not be able to say, you know what, I want this right here. I want this AR right here,
Right now.
right now, at this very moment. I think that should not be acceptable.
You know what? You know what I believe?
And like this dude was like, these AR-15s, these assault rifles, which AR does not stand for assault rifle, by the way. I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's the name of a company, not assault rifle. But this dude's just like, these weapons, they're violent. You get shot with it, and it tears your insides up, and it's violent, and it's horrifying. We should take them away. Why do you need an AR-15 to go hunting? Why do you need an AR-15 to defend yourself? And it's like, hold on. First things first. One, if I've got an AR-15, not saying that I do, if I've got an AR-15 and some dude busts into my house, I'm not gonna want to shoot him with a 9 mil. I'm not going to shoot him. I'm going to shoot him with a weapon that's going to tear your insides up, like he says. I want it to be effective because I'm not planning to get killed. At that point, it's me or you. You're coming into my place? Yeah. Say goodbye. Because this is my place. You're breaking in here. Say goodbye. Damn right that thing better be effective.
Mhm.
Damn right. Same time, this dude's like, I'm coming after your guns. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because as effective as you say these weapons are, imagine people who are more radical and more angry at people in the left. Then you've got people in the left saying, I'm going to come after your guns too. Okay. You want a war? That's how you get a war.
Mhm.
You want to divide the country more? That's how you divide the country.
Mhm.
But people don't get it.
But but
At
I
the,
feel like it's
hold on, I'm almost done. Sorry.
okay.
I'm
Sorry.
going on
Go
my
ahead.
rant. At the end of the day, we have weapons in place to protect ourselves from a government who is become a terrorist group, a terrorist organization who has become what England was back in the day. And if our government starts to take away our rights, the basic rights of what this country was laid upon, that's the foundation of our country. You start taking away the foundation, what's going to happen? It's going to collapse on itself. I'm telling you, watch V for Vendetta. Watch V for Vendetta. Watch it tonight if you can.
I'll try.
Because I promise you, it's mind-blowing. It's scary. Because at the end of the day, a government can go rally behind a guy who's a radicalist, aka our president at the moment. He's a radicalist against immigrants, blaming immigrants for Americans not having jobs. But yet Americans don't want to go out there and work on farms and pick crops for less than minimum. Americans don't want to be out there working these crappy jobs. We're all college educated, supposedly, right? We all want high-paying jobs. But not everyone's qualified. Even if you're college educated, college wasn't for you. Mm-hmm. I know plenty of people who graduated not doing anything with their degree. So, college isn't for everybody. Stop pushing college so much. Go to find a trade. And that's something that is being popularized again. You know, St. Rita in Chicago, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the school, St. Rita, just teamed up with IBEW 134. So the high school, it just teamed up with a big electricians union. That's huge. Because the high school probably realized not all of our kids are made to go to college. Mm-hmm. Not all of our kids are going to graduate from college. Shit, I went to high school with people who didn't even, this is a college prep school, didn't even make it to any college. I know kids who went to college and dropped out their first year because they're just like, that's not for me. And then they feel like losers because that's what our government's pushing is college prep. Everything shouldn't be college prep. I really went off on a tangent here.
No, I totally agree with guns and education because those are two very big topics that I have very interesting, like you do, views on both of them. But I was thinking to myself today, if I were to become president, right? If I had the powers invested in me to be the strongest person in this nation, what would it be the first thing I would do? And I would gather all of the 535 members of Congress together. And we would close the doors to the legislative house. And we wouldn't come out until we came out with something good. Now, I know that when people talk about the Constitution, it's very sacred. They keep it like the Bible. It's something that people don't want to touch because it's something that has forever been there and will forever be there. Right? But if we need to understand the needs of the people at the current situation, democracy works when people have enough vote, right? When people have enough say. That's why we have representation, right? 2 people for every state goes into the Senate. And a certain amount of people, based on how many people live in a certain state, have a representative in the House of Representatives.
So, we are just about up with our time. So, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
Oh,
I know. We are just about up with our time. So, we're going to have to meet up again, Adam, soon. We'll discuss soon. Hold that thought. Write your ideas down, man. Don't want to cut you off. Feel bad. We're just about up. So, finish up your thoughts. Finish up your thoughts, and then we'll have to cut
it. Okay, so basically just having a re-election. So if I'm president, I want a re-election of everybody. I want to get the current feel of what everybody wants.
That's how you get impeached, though.
Absolutely.
That's how you get impeached or killed.
It's change that people want, but people don't advocate for, and it's to understand where, because I hate having to see those guys like Nancy, like that, those people in Congress like Nancy Pelosi and the other people who are just so old. You're there, and yes, you get reelected. I understand that, but we need fresh faces. We need new people.
Why they get reelected? Because the young people don't go out and vote.
And that's what I'm saying. If we have a chance to actually have people be heard, young and old, I'm talking about everybody that lives in a society. Everyone gets a say, and we reelect everybody. And we gather all those people except for one because, people are crazy. So we put that one person in a secret room, but all 534 people, including myself, go into the legislative house and we don't step out until we've looked at every bit of that constitution and we said whether we are going to keep something or we are going to move something. It is radical and it's something that people don't want to think about, but that is something that needs to be done because things need to change. And if you talk about one part of the constitution, you need to talk about all of it. You can't just pick and choose what you like and what you don't like. You take it as it is or you don't take it at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with that. Absolutely 100%. You want to change something, you change the entire foundation. You don't just take bits and pieces out.
Because once you take bits and pieces out, like you said, the foundation crumbles on itself.
Yep.
So you need to fix the foundation as a whole or don't touch it at all.
So, with that being said, Trump, is he going to get impeached? Who knows, man?
Who knows?
Who knows? And we'll keep you guys updated. We're definitely going to try to do many more podcasts like this. Adam and I obviously figured out technology exists, so we know how to do this now. Which,
finally.
Yeah. So we'll definitely be doing this a lot more often. Come check out our channel, History's Benchwarmers. Tell your friends, subscribe, send it to your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandpa, your friends, your cousins, your uncles, your sisters, your brothers, your students if you're a teacher. Send it to everybody. Spread the word. History's Benchwarmers are going to spread like wildfire.
Let's do it.
All right. Catch you guys on the flippity flop.
Peace.